A tool I want to take a moment to show you guys is called Claude AI. This is a good language model. I would say overall it's useful because the way you can utilize it is you can do attachments. If you look here, you can do PDF text, CSV, etc. Now, it doesn't have the same abilities that GPT does to do analysis, but what it does have is what you call a really long context window, meaning you can go through a vast memory of roughly 75,000 words. And a novella, I believe, is around 35,000. That gives you an idea of the length of this book, the length of its context window. This will allow you to upload documents and do a very specific review of content and information. And now, right now, for instance, it'll do a PDF upload. So really quickly, just to kind of demonstrate this and to demo it out, I'm going to upload one of my favorite books. It's called The End of All Evil. It is a book you cannot find online. The last copy I ever saw sold was sold for $2,000 roughly on Amazon. It is a banned book, essentially, and primarily because it teaches principles of autonomy, self-direction, and some people have interpreted it to imply anarchy, and it does for sure, but I don't go that route with it. I look at it and I see it more as the idea that the definition of good is freedom and the definition of evil is slavery. And that's definitely something that I 100% espouse, that if you are enslaving people or you're forcing them and coercing them, they're not doing things of their own free will, that you are evil in your behavior. And that freedom is basically allowing people to understand their own individual worth and to apply themselves. I'm not saying that they are capable, but I'm saying that the best thing to do in life is to believe in yourself and apply yourself. So this is a wonderful book for me. It's my favorite book of all time, even though it's not the best written book. So let's go ahead and find that PDF. So if you look here, this is actually a full text document. So this just is literally a text file, okay? They have various versions of this. There are other formats, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to Control A because the context window is so big for this that I can just do this. Now you could upload a PDF of any book also. I just find text files are a lot easier for things to read. Yeah, I could have done this a far easier way. Let's scroll all the way down. Cool, here we go. Oh, come on, you. Get that, there we go. Now, Control C. Let's go to, I think this is, that's not Anthropic. Here we go, Anthropic. All right, and analyze this book, find the index, and cite the true definitions according to the book. Also, what is the purpose of the book? Turn it into text file automatically. Boom. So it's analyzing the entire book right now, only 94-ish pages. It's going to take it a hot minute. This is free for now, by the way. I've already gotten on the API waiting list because I want to install it with Zapier and use it with a lot of really cool AI tools. But let's see what we get out of this. It's going to take a second. I'm going to pause this while it's doing it. This person's going to call me around 9. Oh, this is taking a hot minute. Okay, here we go. To argue that all law and government are evil and destructive to human freedom and potential. Authority being the key word here. The book claims that humans have infinite worth and that any external control or coercion is immoral. To encourage rebellion against authority, promoting personal liberty and sovereignty. The book advocates dismantling systems of law, police, and taxation, etc. So clearly anarchist aspects. The outline a worldview that sees mainstream culture, democracy, and any form of government as fundamentally oppressive. It does actually detail this very succinctly, and it illustrates a decent argument. Authority implements evil by destroying personal freedom and controlling people's lives. Law, a weapon used by evil to restrict liberty and enslave people. Now, this is obviously a very single-minded approach, because laws do protect and some oversight is needed. There's this balance between freedom and equality, right, that exists in the United States, and it's a complex dynamic for obvious reasons. If it wasn't, we wouldn't have diverse opinions on the matter, right? And we all have different backgrounds, so this makes things really difficult to navigate. In freedom, the infinite value and sovereignty of each individual human being. Anarchy doesn't exist, only tyranny does. Anarchy is a lie used to justify authority. Now, this is actually a very anarchist book. Um, let's see here. Let's see how good this is. What is the definition of arrogance? What is the definition of arrogance? Hopefully it takes from the book. You can copy this too and save it, which is nice. So let's take it a minute. I'm going to pause this while you wait. The beginning of understanding your infinite worth. The book argues that arrogance is not a negative trait as mainstream culture portrays it. Rather, arrogance arises from recognizing one's own unlimited value and potential as a human being. The book sees arrogance as the first step to rejecting external authorities and believing in one's own sovereignty. The key here is the discerning difference in definition of arrogance. This definition of arrogance is such that to be arrogant is meaning other people are going to assume that you value yourself more than you should, which is typical of arrogance. It is the assumption that you have a level of confidence that exceeds capability. And this is going to happen to people a lot that are very capable. And for instance, I ran into someone just yesterday, they're switching roles. For instance, they did a lot of work in another industry. They have a huge amount of experience in being able to do other things. And they'll flip over into another arena, and people will assume that they don't have the skill set or abilities to do that. And for them to assume they have those skills or abilities, they're probably going to be perceived by some individuals as arrogant or misleading. However, what is more often the case is that people have to form assumptions and stereotypes about us that lead them to conclusions. And that we have to take this approach of analyzing a situation from an angle of understanding that one of the most important things you can have is self-confidence. And to understand that, though, I believe that self-confidence in this instance doesn't imply a flamboyancy. If you have to be telling people that you're good at something, then you're not showing them. It is far better to illustrate competence than it is to tell people about competence. People will listen to that, but we're all kind of put off by the showboat to some extent, unless they can truly validate what they are, and we're totally drinking the Kool-Aid. But I prefer people to show it. So look at this. In context, the book's philosophy, arrogance is defined positively as the start of freeing one's mind of cultural indoctrination. Realizing one's own worth is associated with virtues of confidence, independence, and belief in oneself. What is the book statement for the purpose of the book? So these are ways you could analyze tax documents. You could analyze your own tax documents. You could submit everything in here. Has a really long context window, and it can provide useful information. And then if you want to, you can take this information, copy the results, paste it into GPT, and compare it against different plugins to make sure it's accurate. Take it to Perplexity, which is a really good search engine, to cite things to make sure that what you're getting is accurate. You can take it to Agent GPT, and you can do a vast search on it, just control for the temperature, meaning lower the temperature to have more linear responses versus more creative responses, i.e. risking hallucination. Here it is. The book does not explicitly state its purpose in a concise statement. However, based on my analysis, the overall purpose of the book states the same, convince readers that all external authority is evil and destructive to human freedom. Actually, that is incorrect. Actually, that is wrong. The beginning of the book says the purpose of the book. And the end. This book is really good because it has a really good format. It tells you what it's going to tell you. It tells you what it tells you, and then it tells you what it told you, which is a really good way for people to learn. And to utilize this, the full text here to show this, the very beginning of the book. Let's scroll to the very top here. Okay, never in all history, dreams, friends, children, slavery. I think slavery is a huge thing. right now that everyone has to deal with. So the definition of freedom is this: the infinite value of a human being, the value of man, evil, freedom, you. Everything written in this book is written to destroy the ideas of culture and law. The lesson of this book is simple: nothing on earth is more valuable than you, which is important to understand. I think that in the fact that we're human, we naturally care about each other, we naturally want to care about ourselves. And understanding and respecting both aspects of our nature is really important. So don't take things too much out of context. Let's see here. You're right. The previous statement about the person was look at that. It found it all on its own. Nothing on earth is more valuable than you. In the end, it states to teach people of the earth that the value that they have within themselves, you need only speak and tell them that every good thing is theirs to have. You need only tell them that the glory of liberty is real and that it belongs to them, the glory of freedom. What is liberty according to, I think it was On Liberty by John Stuart Mill. What is the definition of liberty by the author of On Liberty? That should be in this book. This should be in its database. That's a really old book. On Liberty by John Stuart Mill. The following: the key aspects of Mill's definition of liberty are the freedom to pursue one's own interests and vision of the good life without interference. So right here is a more proper definition of what you see in the book, The End of All Evil. It's basically the same thing, without interference. And one thing that John Stuart Mill warned about in his book on liberty was the unification of education in the East, mainly China. And his biggest concern is that we were going to see it in the West. And once you do that, you don't get a diversification of ideas anymore. If you have one set way of thinking and you say that is law and rule, you lose out. And I mean that in the strictest sense. I think that Yuval Harari captures this really well in his book Sapiens. We develop models for how we interpret reality. Physics is one model. New Age is one model. And whether or not you agree with them, there are things in both of them that play together. You could even look at New Age from the perspective of Joseph Campbell, myth. It shows you a reality of how things are. It shows you a way that people perceive, a way that people dream. And there are so many things you cannot exclude. And I like the definition an acquaintance told me: cross-cutting. I call it the Medici effect. It's this idea where you take diverse knowledge sets, you throw them into your brain, you let your brain do the math, and then it starts to create and generate random ideas that will seem consequential and intuitive, but they won't be intuitive to other people because they don't have the diverse knowledge set that you've obtained. This is one of the reasons I've strived to be a polymath. But there you go. Freedom of thought, lifestyle, action without coercive interference. So long as others' equal freedoms are respected. This is a utilitarian philosophy to maximize human happiness and progress. So you have to be careful with utilitarianism, right? Because it's not for the greatest number. That is a defeating purpose, because these are the arguments of many people throughout time: is what are the right answers? There aren't any. That's probably the hardest thing to deal with. There are no right answers. People don't like uncertainty, but you go into the world and you find uncertainty and you can make things certain, but once you make certain things certain, you lose certain things. It's a give and take. But that's life. You have to pick for yourself the path you're going to walk.